that comes in the status quo. So what we want? We want that caregiver that deserve the inheritance more by basically trying to persuade that this caregiver worth this inheritance rather than that anak sulung that listed by order or by hukum waris. Why? Because basically physical burdens toward the caregiver is focused to taking care of this grandma, right? So those people that going back to be a toddler needs hard work to taking care of. So that's the connection that comes from the caregiver and the grandma that we want to propose here. We want to we want to pursue here. So what inheritance look like? So at least someone taking care of a person's will gain that percentage of money. So that will proportional towards amount of time that these children taking care of. So what it will looks like a minimum hour of job, minimum hour for a job. So there's a minimum time that qualifying your worth of inheritance. So basically when you taking care of this grandma like a day or like a minimum of seven days, it will put you in that percentage of money that will worth the inheritance. So receiving inheritance usually looks like a family member. So inheritance give a sense of appreciation toward the caregiver. So the caregiver will basically just count as a family member just because they know how to treat this toddler, to treat this toddler look like, which is like this grandma. So it's quote unquote form of payback towards the caregiver. So it's less likely of people to only taking care of a person just because inheritance. What happened in our world? Those people will taking care of these persons because they know that they want to be in their last year or last week of this persons, and that's from sense of appreciations that we want to process on this, and that's why they worth of that inheritance. So uh yeah, POI. uh
Do you think care should be commodified at all instances?
okay. uh I will answer it in my argument. So coming up to my argument, so why it's basically less likely in ours in our world. So panels do notice that in our world, this connections, this caregiver and this caregiven situations will create bonds. So it will put a burden and effort on yourself because you taking care of these persons. That bond between the caregiver and the persons will comprehensively put this caregiver as a family member because they know how to treat these persons and they know how to taking care of these persons until the day of the death. So it's still okay for them to gain inheritance just because at the very least they have time span of taking care of these persons, right? So there will be a check and balance that coming up, like wellness check from hospital to prove that this caregiver is basically put the effort and taking care of this persons proportionally. So in their opposition's world, those children will just taking care of their parents just because like in a form of formality, just because they want the inheritance. But in our world, this caregiver thingy create bonds and connections between the caregiver and the person itself. So taking care of a person's in status quo is being regarded as a simple jobs. So basically, in status quo, those caretakers seen as an obligation. So the obligations will be not proportional, right? So the bungsu will always taking care of their parents just because there's no payback, and the other kid thinks it's not worth the effort. So these motions create some sort of like reconnections when you spend your life taking care of someone's. These reconnections that we want that this caregiver worth the inheritance. So you will get the benefit, e.g. is like Am's find the connections with his grandma, even though his main objective is gain the millions. And these connections comes when you know how hard and how painful the day of the death is, how painful to taking care of these toddler-like persons. And when we have these reconnections, it's from of you to have your life back. So basically, even though you will put your effort, and your life towards this caregiver thingy, you will still have your life back, just because you have this inheritance. So basically, that's how the form of payback exists in our sides. And just and because you taking care of your parents, proportionally you will have your inheritance, and you will start your life, and you will like take chasing your dreams, and pursuing your dreams after this taking care, caregiver things. And that's why you deserve that inheritance. And that's why in our world, we prove to you that caregiver is deserve of this inheritance, and how these mechanisms exist in our world will proportionally divide this inheritance to be equal, and to be effective towards the caregiver and the children itself. And that's why I'm very proud to propose.
We thank the Prime Minister for that speech. Before continuing, I'd like to remind everyone, if you're giving your speech, it's very recommended to turn on your camera. Yeah. Whoops. To start opposition side of the House, we call upon the Leader of Opposition. Here.
Hi, am I audible?
Could you be closer to your mic? It's a little bit soft.
Is it better right now? Or
Oh yeah, it's better now.
okay, for POI preference, you may raise your hand or write in a chat box, cause yeah, I cannot do other way. Let me set my timer. I'll start in 3, 2, and 1. Under our side of the house, we would give a framing why, when we're not making the taking care as a prerequisite as a receiving inheritance, principally going to make the status quo relevant for a pretty long time due to the existence of sincerity and a practical effective to the sustainable of law. First, respond to the OG's main case. OG is necessarily taking the inheritance as something that defined as money or something that is material. But inheritance is something that can be anything they perceive as meaningful thing. It may be money or any things that they value. Those are things that measurable and not only necessarily benefits for the actor who receive it, but also comes with a responsibility. Means it also consists not just people who taking care of them, but also people that capable for that, and people who they trust. Also personal preference for them to whoever they want to give to. We will prove to you why then this only person who taking care as a prerequisite is necessary. Inheritance is something that's so linked with materials, it can be anything. So as I have already explained. And the second is relationship that most likely happen between people and their close one, people who are likely to taking care of them, are mostly they are who privilege. Means if maybe there's parents and having their children far away from them, because the responsibility they have to do, like for example they have to go to the university that away from their house, or they have the work that's away from their place. This doesn't mean that people who's taking care of their parents, for example, people who taking care of the close one is people that maybe the most likely that yeah they're just with them because they care more to them. No, because it's more than that. The form of care, the form of taking care is not just you by their side 24/7. Most likely it's just either you have any other responsibility that likely to happen, and it doesn't mean that your parents or for example anyone that trusting you to taking care of them is it's just because they have the highest trust to you, but maybe it's just you are the one who get the privilege because you maybe have the work that near to your house, for example, or you have the time, you have any other privileges that make you can taking care to be with your parents and etc. But there's outside of that people who cannot who do not have this privilege are also um who do not have those privilege uh, are also have the rights to receive this inheritance. But first, we explain to you principally why people only want to taking care of those people of because of inheritance are principally bad. And aside the privilege, the second one is why is this bad? Because in the counterfactual, there's people who just want to taking care of their parents, for example, or anyone that they think after they taking care of them means then they can have the inheritance. This is likely to happen under the government side because at the very first place they do not have the sincerity that should be exist under our side of the house because it doesn't matter whoever taking care of them means they get the inheritance, right? So what will happen after this kind of mindset, after people have this kind of mind for they think that yeah, I just want to taking care of them because I'll get the inheritance from them. When this is rise in the when this is rise under the government side of the house means the sincerity the importance of sincerity, the importance of we would genuinely care for the people, we would genuinely taking care of them, no matter what. It's actually bad. It's actually bad for you to only want to taking care of them because of benefit that you expect to get.
Is she
Hello?
lagging?
Yeah. Okay, I've paused the timer for.
Sorry.
Wait. LO. Hello.
Yeah.
You disconnected for a bit at the timer. I've stopped here. The last thing you said was it's bad if you only want the benefit, and then you got cut off.
Okay, I'll continue in 3, 2, and 1. Aside the privilege, it's also because those kind of principle that should be exist in under the genuine and sincerity is also cannot exist under the government side of those because we first cannot differentiate which people is genuine, which people is sincere, or just they want to taking care of those people because they want benefits from them. But second, the unnecessarily is since anyway they are the one who will decide to whom they want to give the benefits. So besides this prerequisite exists or not, they're who's the one like to choose which person and which people that they trust to give us this inheritance. But the practicality is also not fair and effective because there is no metric in the term of care and how far the taking care is defined. But before that, POI from CG. 3, 2, and okay.
Yeah. All right, please continue. It's 6 already.
Okay. Yeah, but the second one is about the practical, that is no metric in the term of care and how far the taking care are defined. So this is dangerous because in the status quo, we already know the existence of law that gonna rule how the inheritance can be given for. There is hukum waris exists under the status quo, and we think that is enough. Without you giving the prerequisite for people who taking care of them, because it's giving the more details about who people that can get those inheritance at the very first place. Like there is also a lot of conditions, a lot of reason why at the very first place people cannot taking care of their close one, and in the metrics of trust, in the metrics of capability and etc. In in those law is already giving the detailed information like the relations. I mean, for no matter what's the reason, like your children or the closest people in a family deserve for it. So thank you.
You thank the leader of opposition for that speech. Gentle reminder, if you've already, given your POI, you should be ready if the speaker decides to take it or not. To continue this debate, we call upon the Deputy Prime Minister. Here.
Okay. Am I audible and
Yep,
visible?
you are both now.
Yes, you're.
Okay, cool. Probably quick disclaimer, maybe talking about some sensitive topics. And second, my POI preference is you can unmute yourself. Hopefully be able to come from the CO. Prefer pronounce share. Okay. I'm starting my timer first. I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. I think it's funny when O say that those who can actually take care of someone who's going to die is only those who are close enough to them, for example, or who's privileged enough to take care of them. I think it's much more complex than just you're able to take care of someone just because you're privileged to do so. Because notice that most often than not, the person that you're taking care of is probably your family, probably your grandma or your mother, for example. So when it's family and you actually want to take care of them and you very much love them and care for them, and you probably want to give back to your mother because she's been taking care of you since you're in the womb, for example, you'll drop everything and actually take care of her. This is the common case in the status quo right now, where people will drop everything that they have, their job, even miles apart, and they will go back home and take care of the person that they love. But what happened in the status quo is that the laws failed them. For example, in hukum waris Islam, as long as you are a male first child, you will get the majority of your inheritance. Comparing to someone who actually work or who actually take care of your mother, for example, or take care of someone who's going to die, you'll probably get a lesser portion just because they're a woman, for example, or because they're like the last born children. So aside from that, there's also a concept of will or concept of court that at the end of the day will not actually give a proportionate inheritance to someone who actually take care of the person that's going to die. I will later elaborate further and what my PM already explained to you, right? So going to my framing then. This basically tackles as well as tackling everything that O said, right? So number one, the 3 characteristics of caregivers that my PM already mentioned is very important. Why? Because when you are mentally burdened, i.e., did I do well enough to take care of someone? Or why is my mother fighting with me just because I want to take care of them? Which is very likely because once you are, past a certain age, your mental cognitivity will also regress, right? This is why they will older seniors, for example, will go back into being a childlike actions, i.e., they throw tantrums, they don't want to eat their medicines or they want to eat their foods. That also create a mental burden, and this is is very burdening for the caregivers. But second, caregivers most often than not spend their life or their entire day, their entire week taking care of someone, right? This looks like personal example. My mother will spend like the majority of her time to take care of my grandmother. She doesn't she doesn't have anything else to do except taking care of my grandmother or her mother, right? But lastly, it means that you're being undermined because a lot of people think that it's an obligation for you to take care of your parents or take care of your close one, for example, when they die. But if it's an obligation, at the end of the day, in the status quo, there's only like a few people that actually wants to take care of the person that's going to die, right? Their mother, their grandmother, they're terminally ill, for example, because it's very, very hard, and they do understand that it's very hard. So what the caregivers actually need is obviously some sort of token of appreciations because they've spent their entire life, for example, or the majority of their time, for example, they drop everything to take care of someone, and they're being undermined by the status quo. So having taken care of someone, a prerequisite of receiving inheritance, and when these caregivers receiving the inheritance, it will actually be at least lessen the pain or the grief that they got when the person that they take care of died, right? I will later explain it. But second then, what does taking care looks like? It's not simple. Taking care is not just like hospital visits or like medicines, physical therapies, or taking care of the person that you care of going to showers or going to the bathroom. but it also means seeing the person that you love, that take care of you when you are young, for example, when you reach your 20s, for example, turn into someone that you basically don't know. This looks like someone who had dementia, for example, or Alzheimer's, for example, who will slowly and surely will forget about you. As a daughter, as a granddaughter, even it'll be very hard for you to see them like that. So again, it adds a bigger mental burden for you. And since in the society thinks that it is a status quo, since the society thinks that it's an obligation, especially in Indonesia, for example, to take care of the elderly, and it doesn't just put them in elderly facilities, for example, it means they're like normalizing a huge burden without any kind of return, right? They just just take it face value. There's nothing. Sure, we think that it's very good for you to be able to take care of someone because you basically quote unquote ikhlas, for example. But at the end of the day, if the status quo is that unfair for this person, we think that there's something that needs to be changed, right? But again, this is the reason why then efforts needs to happen. Going to my third framing, why an inheritance is important. Number one, it creates problems because a lot of people or a lot of family fighting over their inheritance, fighting over who should actually get the inheritance or not, even if there is already a will or even if there's already go to the court. They will all going back to the court. They will sue each other, for example. But second, then I think what is the ideal scenario is that it's actually proportionate, right? It just looks like you're working. If you don't go to work, for example, you don't get to pay. But this is 100 times harder because it's not working. It's someone that you have a close relationship with. It's probably your father or your mother, and etc. Right? But lastly, and the term of fairness, and which is also an extension of my second point, it means that you either judged by a court, for example, or in the proportionate to your effort. So this also tackles down O's case because O will say that it doesn't mean that you don't care, but you just can't. The point is, it's not whether who's the most caring, but who's the people that are actually put in effort to show that they care. The action to actually taking care of someone is very different to just send a text and say, well, get well soon, for example, but actually showing up, actually taking care of them. Reminder that this is someone who's older and elderly, right? Someone who probably needs you right now, not just your words. And this is why then it's for us to think that it's very justified. But lastly, to also answer CEO's concern, why then this is not actually commodifying care? On the definition of commodifying itself, it's sold and bought goods in the market. Why then this motion won't be commodifying? Because number one, it is not sold or bought, right? It is given. Once you're taking care of someone, even you knowing that you will receive inheritance, it's less likely for you to think that I do it only out of want to have my inheritance, because it puts a mental and a physical burden to yourself. You may need to get out of your job. Is the cost is the cost analysis actually worth it or not? Is the trade-off actually worth it or not? Because most of people that take care of someone doesn't think about the trade-off. They think about, this person raised me and I should actually help take care of them, right? So you did not sell your time. You give your time without anything, without any belief of any return, right? Because the relationship goes above and beyond. But my PM already explained that even if this happens, some people actually do this kind of things because there will be a check and balances, i.e. there's wellness check coming from the court, so you still need to take care of them properly. And taking care of them properly also means that you also get the same struggle, the same burden. So even if initially you want to take care of someone just because you want to get the inheritance, if you get over the struggle, you will able to change your mind. Proud to propose. Thank you.
We thank the Deputy Prime Minister for that speech. To continue, we call upon the Deputy Leader of Opposition. Here.
Check, am I audible?
Yep, you're audible.
Okay. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. In OO, what we want to pursue is we want to stick with the status quo, where we believe that the idea or the proposal of this thing is unnecessary. Because why? Because first, we believe that in the status quo, the mechanism upon how or actually this inheritance is going to be given, like for example, it's actually this type of things already exists. For example, the alternative is already exists when the moment, like for example, these people that want to go there, for example, these old people have the capability or have the rights to actually choose who they wanted to give the inheritance at the very beginnings. Meaning that in the status quo, this type of things already exist, and we believe that the idea of creating some kind of mechanism like this is unnecessary. Because why? Because at the end of the day, we believe that this mechanism is exists at the beginnings. And also, talking about the idea of inheritance, we believe that inheritance is something that not only talks about wealth, money, or everything, it also talks about debt. Like for example, that is why this inheritance is going to be given to those who, for example, is actually the child of this person. For example, that is why, because at the end of the day, this inheritance is not just type of money, but then it's type of debt. Meaning that right now, if you want to give this type of inheritance towards the caregiver, you would only increase the burden furthermore. Because why? Because then they need to actually fulfill the debt of these people, of these dying people at their day. Now, moving on towards the no, towards response towards the case of the DPM, towards the PM, for example, we believe that the DPM, the moment that they talk to you upon the constellation of how her mother, for example, didn't have other things to do other than taking care of their grandma. We believe that this point, for example, is proving to you that, for example, that not all people have the capability or not all people have the privilege of time to actually take care of these people. For example, notice that there was some difference in, because why? Because at the end of the day, not all people inside of this world is actually like your mother, for example, that they didn't have nothing to do other than taking care of their grandmother from the very beginnings. Because why? Because at the end of the day, talks about all people have the work, for example, although maybe the government side of the house stated that, for example, work, you can leave works to actually take care of your grandmothers, this, that, etc. We believe that is not that realistic. Because why? Because at the end of the day, they work for their grandma, for example. That is actually one type of care that they should pursue at the very beginnings. Because why? Because they work 24 hours, for example, every week in order to gain money to provide the betterment for life, for example, to this grandmother, for example. That is why we believe that is why it's going to relate to upon the idea of careness, for example. We believe that care is a parameter that is too complex to actually being given towards to actually being used as the parameter of giving some kind of inheritance. Because why? Because you could actually ukur the parameter of care, for example. Like you couldn't say, like for example, this type of people who didn't actually go or even in the side of your grandma, for example, to be not care towards your grandma. Meaning that at the very beginning, it's going to be really complex. Because then what happens if what happens if your mother, for example, is in the US, for example, working, for example, but then they didn't have to actually take time, for example, to go and to care of your grandma. Meaning that gap is something that's really complex at the beginning. Although maybe the idea of efforts, these that as well. We believe that efforts also could happen from the other people. Effort could also comes. Because why? Because at the day, the effort could actually come from all the incentives at the beginnings. And also talking about the idea of the caregiver, we actually question upon the idea what is actually the meaning upon that caregiver in your side of the house. Would be mother, for example, or even the people actually being paid, for example, to do so. We believe that the mental burden, physical burden that's been given, and so the idea of appreciation towards their caregiver has already been given. Because why? Because at the end of the day, it's their job, for example. Meaning that now a caregiver's job is actually to care, for example. Meaning that now some people actually pay towards their caregiver to actually took care of your grandmothers. Meaning that the idea appreciation is actually there at the very beginnings. Because why? Because at the day you didn't explain the idea of caregiving at the very beginnings. And also, if there's this caregiver is actually giving this type of certain amount of efforts, certain amount of appreciation for the very beginning, the moment the people who is actually dying, for example, your grandma could easily write in the surat wasiat, for example, to give you this type of thing, for example, which means at the end of the day you still will get the portion in our side of the house in the status quo at the very beginning. And also, why is it bad? For example, first, talking about the idea of the intention, we believe that by doing this kind of mechanism, it will ruin the idea of intention. Because why? Because talking about now, they would only take care because money, for example. Why does it bad? It will create some kind of new motives of criminal type of thing. For example, they only took care of you at the very beginning, but deep inside, they don't really care about you. What they care is their money. How this is going to be happen at the very beginning? It will only increasing their killing intention. For example, they could easily poison you. Because at the end of the day, they have the capability to do so. Because they are actually in directly to you. This is the one who actually really close to you, meaning that they could easily kill you at the very beginning. This create a new motives. Because why? Because at the day their intention is money at the very beginning, and not actually 100% to take care about you at the very beginnings, meaning that it's ruining the intention. Also, talking about the idea of fairness, this, that, etc. We believe that our mechanism will be where we want to actually stick with the status quo is going to be better. Because why? Because at the day it creates fairness. Because in our side of the house, we notice that the idea of inheritance is not just about money, but about debt, for example. Meaning that this debt would only be given towards those people who have linked to you, for example, which is your son, for example, at the very beginning. That is why, for example, we give them towards those people who actually we give the certain amount of portion, for example, to those people that have linked to you to actually fulfill the debt of the very beginning. And also talking about fairness, for example, notice that not all people have the capability to actually to actually take care of their grandma, for example. They need to work, for example. They were sandwich generations, for example. They need to gain money, but then they need to actually take care of their grandma. We believe that it's not fair for them because why? Because at the day they didn't have the time to take care of their grandma, but then they were forced to do so. And also talking about the idea of care, we believe that the careness is going to be happen anyway. But if this son doesn't take care of their grandma, we believe that the society itself could be the idea of check and balance at the very beginning. Because why? Because at the day the society could still firelize these people. For example, look, there were grandmas, no people that actually care about them. Meaning that right now the society could actually offer them to some kind of donations to actually care, to actually give these incentives towards the grandma at the very beginning. And also the society itself could also help this grandma, for example, to go towards the panti jompo, this, that, etc. We believe that the idea of careness is going to be happen anyway in our said house. Really proud to oppose. Thank you.
We thank the Deputy Leader of Opposition for that speech. That wraps up the opening of this debate. To start the closing half, we call upon the member for the government. Here.
Am I audible and clear, Kak?
Yeah, you're audible and clear.
I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. All right, Oji never explained how the taking care of will look like, and we will, as CG will explain that. And they only mention that they want reconnection with children, and they only state that it is justified to get this inheritance because of a huge burden, but they never explain what the burden will looks like. And then on OO, they only want sincere people to taking care of this elderly, and the caregiver only want for money. But I will explain later in my extension how this caregiver, even though they only seeking for money, it's still beneficial for both parties. And then
I think he's not audible.
Hello. MG. Golf Whip, are you here? Oh wait, no, they're on the same device. Okay, I'll flag it in the group then. CG in room A7. I'll just move to so we wait. Yeah, sure. If you want to go to, if anyone wants to go to the toilet, please flag it in the chat. So we can know if everyone's back, yeah? Yeah, go, just go. I think someone else is connected as well. OG, okay. I think PM is gone, but I think as long as DPM is still here at the moment, you can contact your PM as well, yeah, for OG. Why is the room getting more empty? Okay, hello, Arcom. Is there our solution? Oh, nope, they're back. CG, are you there? Losing government
Sorry, Kak. How long have I disconnected?
for so long. Almost like 5
Sorry, I
minutes.
was just doing speech. I thought I was not freezer.
Okay. So yeah, it's so long. We've only heard you for like 30 seconds. You can still see the timer here. So what we're gonna do is just restart altogether for the member speech, since again, 30 seconds. Yeah, so you can just restart your speech from the very beginning, okay?
Okay. All right. I'm so sorry. Okay. I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. All right. OG never explained how the taking care will looks like. They never mechanized this because and we as CG will definitely explain to you how the taking care will look like on our side of the house. And then they mentioned that they want to reconnect, they want connection with children, between parents and children. But on our side, we believe that it is not only exclusive for between parents and children, but caregivers can come from anyone. It can come from total strangers that actually want to take care of these elders people. And then they only mention that it is justified because it is a huge burden for them to kind of like taking care of these elder people. But we will prove to you what the burden is, because they only mention it's a huge burden, mental burden, but they never explain what the burden will what is the actual burden is happening. And it is only it will be only explained on CG. And then on OO, they only they mentioned that they only want sincere people to taking care of these elderly, because the caregiver only want money, because that is the motion. But we believe that it is okay from the very first place, because these people actually need to be taken care of because they're old. And I will explain to you later in my argument why it is important for them to get this kind of like help from other people. And then on OO, they said that the caregiver is still getting paid, so it is not kind of like it is not important for them to get money from the very first place. But the same as children who actually been fed and fun, and that is their job to repay them if they decide to still give money to their parents. But the one that is actually giving the person a fulfillment as a caregiver is the one that is actually deserved to get the inheritance from the very first place. And then they mentioned that the current deal is forced on our side, even though they're busy. At which it is actually proving our points later why it is important that these people that is actually giving time to taking care of others is the one that is deserved to getting the inheritance. And then moving on to my extension. First, why these people will be unlikely to have anyone taking care of from the very first place. Two things here. First, because they're old and have no close family relation to care for them. Because as we know, what happens nowadays, many people either focus on child-free or become more individualistic on that is what happens nowadays. So as we know that it is very unlikely for these older people to get kind of like taking care, because some people being more individualistic nowadays. So it is important to have some kind of like urge to other people to care for them, because they will get rewards at the end. That is why it is justified. And then secondly, because this is a capitalist world, people are busy to keeping themselves alive with work, studies, and etc. etc. So it is very unlikely for this kind of like elderly to get kind of like care for their from their children, from their grandchildren, if they do not have kind of like some incentive from the very first place. And that is why it is justified for them to get kind of like to get rewards at the end of the day. And then moving on to my second extension, how crucial it is the event before dying for these people. Two things here. First, they need emotional and psychological fulfillment because they are about to die. So it is they no longer need to gain more money, to gain more kind of like stocks. They do not need more degrees, but what they need is like fulfillment in their life. So it is important for them to have someone to accompany them because they need like a lasting impression because they are about to die. So they need this kind of like good memories for them. And then they need mitigating existential loneliness, because as we know, when they're about to die and they are old, as I've mentioned before, people are busy, people become more individualistic, so they will have the feel of loneliness. And that is why it is important to people to have incentive to help them to kind of like cater this loneliness and fears of them before their death. And then second point is they want to kind of like have a closure and peace before their death. So they need other human being as a comforting transition, because before that, when they're young, they're busy, they have friends, they have other things. But when they're old, they no longer have that. So they need other human being as a comforting transition. And it is why it is important for other people to have the incentive from the very first place to get kind of like rewards or something, even though at the very first place, people were taking care of them because they're money, but it is justified because these people need that, because these people is actually dying. These people need closure, peace, and fulfillment in their life. And then moving on to my third extension, how the taking care will looks like. Three things. First, they will be taking care their whole life. Means that they will be taking care in terms of both physical and psychological. And then moving on to my point, how will the psychological looks like?
two things here. First, they will be taking care on their health state. So not only helping them on something but they will help them towards their medication. They will help them with papers. They will help them with kind of a lot of stuff. So it is mental and physical state of them. So they will be taking care on a lot of things. And then secondly, they will be taking care of their needs, because basic needs, because they're old, they are incapable of doing things. So it is important for them to help kind of like to get help from other people, including helping their mobility, to kind of like, even they need help to go to the bathroom. They need help with changing diapers because they're old and they're incapable of doing that. And then it is kind of like a very huge burden that OG never explained. What is the burden? And we only explain this. This is like a huge burden for people to actually taking care of them for 24/7. And OG only mentioned, oh, they will have like chef or something, but we do not want that. We want people that is actually taking care of them have sacrificed something to get the inheritance at the end of the day, because that is a reward for them. Yes, I'll take the POI from CO.
Do you think it's justified for children who are oppressed their entire life to be entitled to taking care of their parents in all instances?
All right, we are not saying that it is have to be children, but it is can be something from other people. So if the children are not actually taking care of them, and the nurses is actually taking care of them for their whole life, and the nurses kind of like successfully giving them what their life fulfillment, it is kind of like justified for them to get the inheritance from the very first place. We never mentioned that it is have to be the children. That is like our point. We different from OG. I've explained to you how the physical way looks like. And then moving on to my third point, how the psychological way looks like then. Two things here. First, they will have companionship and conversation throughout their kind of like their kind of like last life, because they need this companionship, because they are lonely and stuff. And then secondly, they will keeping them in touch through social connection, because as we know, they are incapable of doing this. So they need other people to kind of like have a bridge for them to get to get to know other people, because they need as a closure and peace. They need that. They no longer need degrees and stuff. And that is why it's important for them to get kind of like help from others. And then the weighing on our side is we give more fulfillment for these people before their death. And in terms of gravity, we give the inheritance to the right person that actually sacrificed something for them, like including their life, their degree, their works for them proud to propose.
We thank the member of the government for that speech. To start closing opposition, we call upon the member of the here.
Hello, am I audible and visible?
Yep, you are both.
Okay. I'm gonna turn on Shifer. Feel I for unmuting yourself because my chat is a little bit bad. So I won't be looking at the chat box, but you can also raise hand if you want. I think if someone has a chance of getting hundreds of millions, they would want to do so either way, right? They would fake themselves for years and would not really care about their family again after that anyway, right? So those things would inherently happen anyway under the side of government, because they say like, oh, they would want to take care of their loved ones, etc. It's just simply the thing that you need to engage with, because if you had a lot of inheritance at stake, that's simply the mindset that people would have at the very first place, right? If you actually care about your parents, your grandparents, or relatives even, you would not care about how much money or how much inheritance you can get from it, or how much assets you can gain from helping them anyway, right? Because you really want to take care of them. You want to spend the rest of your life, the rest of their life in happiness with you, for example, because you want to cherish those moments. So inheritance is something that you commodify when you actually enact this policy under the side of government, right? We want people to take care of these parents, of these grandparents, of these elders because you want to, not because you're forced to do so. Or rightfully pointed out that, oh, these people will just want to do that for money, etc. But it is not the real life conditions and they get zero mechanisms as well as to why that is the most likely scenario to happen in the majority anyway, right? CO will explain it better. We are going to give you the urgency of why this policy is inherently something that is very bad, right? Listen to this framing. Firstly, like what my web has pointed out and given for the POI to CG, we have explained to you that these children, in certain circumstances, are the ones that are the most vulnerable, right? They are the ones that, for example, people who have been abused and abandoned by their parents, right? On government side, they now need to still take care of their parents anyway, right? Or else they won't get that inheritance. That is inherently what's going to happen under the side of government, right? What is this something that is what is the manifestation of this, right? Right. For example, when you were younger, your parents are constantly neglecting you, emotionally unavailable, putting you in your grandma's house, etc. For example, but your parents currently are dying. It's not something that is justified for you to still need to take care of them for you to be able to get those inheritance, because inherently you are the ones that are the most justified. You need the most of those compensations because you are the ones that are the most vulnerable, right? Why is this the most important thing here? Because inheritance is something that these vulnerable people need the most. They're the ones that need this compensation. On government side, your parents constantly hit you and neglect you when you're young, but now you need to do those caregiving duties and do that wholeheartedly, whole from your heart, for you to even get those inheritance. That is just inherently something that's very unfair, right? But B, on government side, you stop these people to get what they deserve to compensate for their trauma.
Right.
The ones that can't see their parents face to face, are just unable to be near their parents, or get re-traumatized, for example, are robbed of their right to get what they deserve, right? What is the conclusion of this first point, right? Government on the government side, you stop the most vulnerable people to even get this compensation from their trauma, from their childhood, for example. But second, they also commodify the need of inheritance to something that you are forced to do at the side of government, right? This is way more important than what OO says, because we give you the actual urgency of why this policy is harmful to these individuals, but B, we are not forcing anyone to take care of their parents or elder if they don't genuinely want to. But I'll take one from OG.
The care of caretakers and daycare workers are different. This is your family. At the very least, in OG, we have the connection.
Why would they not have the connection suddenly under our side? If you actually care about your parents, you would want to take care of them otherwise, right? If my parents are sick, I would want to take care of them regardless of them giving me inheritance or not. I don't really care if my mother would leave me this house that I'm living as well, because I love my parents. It would still happen in the current status quo without your policy anyway, right? So I don't get your point there. But secondly, on what this is something that's inherently going to be very much unfair, right? Because on A, there's this capacity disparity that happens. Because firstly, and this is not like what OO says about, oh, they live far, etc., but about capacity of these people, right? The children who are housewives, for example, can probably take care of their parents even more. They can, comp that 8 hours that OG wants, for example, for like a minimum wage job to like take care of parents, compared to their other siblings that need to sustain their life for their living. For example, they need to do their work. For example, it is unfair for government side, for OG, to say that, oh, you need to abandon your life to take care of your parents full time, like what DPM says before. It is inherently something that is very much unfair as well, right? But I'm going to explain then on why but I'm going to flag out, we are not abandoning these elders under CO, right? Because in status quo, we already have expectations to even take care of your family inherently, but also from society, right? On three reasons. A, if you have a good relationship with your parents, like what I said before again and again, you most likely would take care of them in one way or another because you love them and you have a good bond with your parents. For example, you want to spend the rest of their life in bliss. You want to make them happy. For example, you want them to see, you don't want to regret when they actually are no longer in this world, for example, that you have done everything that you do to make them happy for the rest of their life, right? But B, also internally, you have that sense of responsibility. If your parents have taken care of you since young and they take care of you good, for example, you would want to do so by yourself anyway, right? But see, there's also a lot of people that tells you to take care of your loved ones, to take care of your parents, because that's your responsibility. Like you see around you, your friends take care of their grandma, for example, or your friends take care of your parents, for example, or your cousins taking care of your parents, for example, or videos in YouTube, like if you watch Chris Punsalan, for example, they take care of their grandma and videotape it, showing how much happy they are taking care of their grandma, for example. But So what happens then? The impact is the feelings that these parents get would be comparatively much better under our side, because these parents would feel that their children are taking care of them out of genuinity, not because they want those inheritance. They don't constantly question whether my children are actually going to take care of me because I'm going to give them something anyway. That is something that is going to happen under the side of opposition. On our side, you take care out of one. You are not forced to do it. If you can, then you want to take care of your elders if you love them. But secondly, our metric is more fair, since we have explained there are lots of externalities that hinders you from doing so. But we are the ones that are actually catering to the most vulnerable, and we are the ones that are the most engaging. But to post.
Wait. We thank the member of the opposition for that speech. To wrap up government side of the House, we call upon government whip. Here.
Cheka, am I audible and clear?
Yeah, you're audible.
Yep, okay. POI preference, just unmute yourself, and I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Okay, first of all, before we actually going into my extension, first of all, the opening government, they said about how these people like who taking care is deserve to get appreciation and stuff, and also they never explain us. They give like less explanation why people who taking care are deserve to get that inheritance, or why it's justified to them to get that money and stuff. And also the opening government have no mechanism on how taking care look like. And also they talk about people who taking care have, like, for example, like time limit to work and stuff. They actually don't understand how this taking care is look like. And also they only talk about the mental burden and stuff, but they never explain it. Why is it justified for them to get that like that money that and stuff. And also the opening opposition, for speaker opening opposition, like don't really understand the case, and they said about how is it dangerous for people who people who taking care get this inheritance and stuff. And also, but they never explain how it is so dangerous for them, while they are like the only one who taking care of these old people or these sick people who are like close to their death. And also, how about people who are sick, for example? They said about their children don't have to like taking care for like 24/7. And how about people who are sick and close to their death, for example? Like, and how this like how and they let these people that like alone and justify this. And also, how about people with no close relationship, for example, no close relation, for example? Are you gonna let them die alone and stuff? Because what these people actually need is the attention, the emotional support and stuff, not only money, but they also what they actually need is how they can like get emotional support to like still alive, to get like more spirit and stuff. And also, closing opposition said about like people who taking care, it should be like a sincerely, or people who like taking care, it should be not looking for money and stuff. But it's very unlikely for to everyone, like for example, like to everyone, to parents to taking care sincerely for them, because people individualist right now, and also capitalist instead for right now, right? Children are so young, for example, having like much goals to achieve, for example. They can get a better life in the future, for example, like or like for example, like children from broken home, for example, that don't want to like taking care for their parents, but all parents need people who taking care for them, like to change their diapers and stuff. Like means they can like use nurse and stuff, and this is justified for them to like to get inheritance, because they are the only one who taking care of them, who like changing the diapers, who like for like giving emotional support at the end of the day. Because what these people actually need is like people who beside them 24/7. And also, and our mechanism is taking care, it's not only giving money and stuff, but in our side, taking care is also like giving money, giving emotional support, like taking care when they are sick, like for example, like people who old and sick, and we like change the diapers and stuff. We also taking care like making food and stuff. And also this is the reason why this is justified for them to get like inheritance at very first place, because they sacrifice everything, because they need to like to go to work to like, for example, keeping themselves alive. Because of that, we also explain it why this is justified for them, because they already sacrifice everything to like taking care, and also to like busy to work, and also like keeping themselves alive, because people, not all people can have enough money to like to support their life. And also in our side, making this means like making family getting closer, even like they looking for money, for example. At least before they actually die, they're not alone. Like for example, like children beside them and stuff, they get this emotional support. They are also like people who always ready for them to like taking care of, also like getting that love from their children, because of that beside them, these people before they actually die. And also in our side, this mean like people will fulfill responsibility as a children, for example, or like for example, like people who like taking care of them to get to more fulfill the responsibility as people who taking care, like for example, like these parents can get like more attention, more emotional support, because what they actually need is emotional support. And also we don't limiting people, like for example, like who taking care of them is always only child, but we also talk to you, like we there's also nurse who are actually taking care of them, not only for the children itself. And also how this, and also how crucial memories, emotion before these people die. People only live once, right? Because of that, we what we talk to you is this emotional support is what this actually need. And also, and how hard people who taking care is getting a hard job, because for example, people have to like taking care for 24/7 and change the diapers, making food and stuff, and also giving emotional support, for example, like always ready for them to like to making food and stuff. And also people who close to their death, it also need people who beside them to talk to. And also the second one is always need emotional support, for example, like when they are sick and they need support, or even when they are old people who need more attention. And also going into my comparison, first of all, in our side, at least we fulfill the responsibility to taking care for the parents before they actually dead, and also before they actually die. And also people get what they deserve, for example, because taking care are a super hard job. And also, and on in
POI.
government side, why are they just like, why are you just neglecting the parents, for example, like for the causing opposition? Because on your side, for the parents that actually not have someone that taking care of them, and the children will get like the like inheritance, regardless whether they do taking care during the close death moment, or stuff. Even though they did bad things during the young, it's still justified for them, and justified for them to not care for them when they are old, because the children like still have a chance to have a better life, because they are young and still have lots of opportunities. So it is not justified if they got the inheritance without taking care of their parents, because they're not like they're not actually giving love for their parents, giving what these parents actually need when they are near to their to their die. And also why parents actually need a huge bonding connection, and giving them to other people is not enough, because they need a closure to get the fulfillment, to make them have attention, to taking care of them, to change the diapers, to like taking care of their health and stuff. And also because of the reason, we probably to propose this motion. Thank you.
We thank the government rep for that speech. Last but not the least, we call upon the opposition worker here.
Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay, thank you, Ka. POI preference, just directly unmute yourself. Inheritance is a right that children should have. It shouldn't be a privilege or precondition that dictates over what children have to do towards their parents in order to receive the money, when the circumstances that people grew up in each family highly differs, right? Gov Bench has already lost its debate the moment they assume that children who sacrifice the most will most definitely get the inheritance money, right? Because you need to pay attention to the motion. It's a prerequisite to getting the inheritance. It is not an automatic transaction. What we tell you on the CG's extension is extremely crucial, because bias and preferences will always exist in the status quo anyway and will only continue to be exacerbated with the prerequisite to inheritance itself. But let's first take out OG, right? Because OG tells you that existing standard is bad and caregivers deserve this appreciation. But the problem is, they never recognize to you how to quantify care or in which instances is it justified for you to always calculate the commodification of care itself. We think proportionality is something that's extremely big because quantity never equates to a clear metric good caregiving anyway. We instead argue that the arbitrary metric instead coerces these caregivers more under OG's role. Firstly, because not everyone has the capacity for you to do so, there's a lot of time constraint for you to take care of your family. There's hustle culture and capitalism, for instance, that forces people to always go to work. There is proximity issues that you can never always be there for your family because you live in another area, for instance, or other cases in which limits people from actually giving back towards their parents, right? This is most detrimental, especially to the lower to middle class society who cannot give up their own life, which otherwise you cannot survive inside this entire capitalistic world, right? It's so unfair that all of these well-off family members will always be the ones who can be there for your parents. They're the ones who can have a house to take your parents in. These housewives who have all the time in the world are the ones who can take care of your family and are the only ones who can get the inheritance money that comes from your parents itself. But secondly, then, it's also very hard for government to micromanage or to supervise every single action that these family members are contributing during the entire process of caregiving as well. You cannot objectively and you cannot accurately measure the quality of caregiving. Therefore, appreciation is never the metric to judge this debate. Instead, we tell there's already existing biases to some members of the family to always get inheritance money as well. OG never explained to you why those standards will suddenly cease to exist on their side just because you take care of your parents in their world, right? Parents can always justify inheritance by saying that even if your eldest son is never there for you in the hospital, they're the ones who paid for medical bills. Therefore, they're the ones who deserve to take the inheritance, or simply just because they are the oldest and therefore they are entitled to the inheritance money as well. It doesn't matter if you sacrifice your time and effort because they never proved to you why there will always be why they're the ones who's going to get the inheritance money anyway. Because there's always going to be ways for these parents to discredit you by saying that you didn't take good enough of care for them, you didn't do enough, and therefore you will not get the transaction and clears of the house. The win is very important, right? Because we only proved to you on CO that all these structural biases will simply get worse and worse on the government bench. Not only are you coerced into thinking that you always need to give up your own autonomy, your own time, your own life, for instance, to take care of your parents, but there is never any guarantee that you will be the ones who will get the inheritance money as well. Therefore, appreciation is never proven at their side of the house. They cannot take their benefit. But secondly, then, is a direct response to CG when they talk about moral responsibility, right? First of all, if they assume the relationship between these parents and children is good, then I don't think negligence is going to be the case that manifests inside this family because of two main reasons. Number one, because most likely you already have the initial incentive to take care of your parents because you have that bond, because you love your family, right? That is the reason why even in status quo, a lot of families are already there to take leaves, for instance, and to use their time off work to take care of your parents, to go to hospitals, to take your parents to like medical checkups and so on. But secondly, then there's also a lot of social expectation for you to do so anyway. This looks like how your extended family will always pressure you to look after your parents. There are standards that determines whether or not you are an obedient child if you take care of your family. There is a lot of religious narratives as well that mandates you to always give back to your parents. That is to say that we're already proving to you why care already exists and therefore it's not the most urgent contention in this debate, right? But secondly, then, is a direct flip to their entire case. They say that if caregiving is a prerequisite of receiving inheritance, we say that the happiness that parents feel and the mental support that CG glorifies instead is non-existent or is significantly reduced, right? Because you always think that your family member are doing this just for the sake of getting inheritance money, not because they genuinely care about you, right? In instances where you do grow up in a good family, this is far more harmful and far more immoral because parents never deserve to feel like they're just there for the sake of getting commodified by their own children, in which they already sacrificed so much to raise your entire family, to raise your entire children, because they're dying and they're always going to be there only for the sake of inheritance. Otherwise, no one will be there to take care of you. This actually weighs us over CG's entire case because we're the only ones who prove to you why care already exists, therefore co-opting most of their benefit if they try to talk about fulfillment and whatnot. But we tell you that the existing prerequisite directly kills of the closure and of the happiness that these parents would get at the end of the day as well, right? So they frame that these parents or these dying parents are the ones who are the most vulnerable. They get even more vulnerable under CG exactly because you do not feel like your children are there genuinely because they care about you. But that, and unfortunately, not Not everyone is lucky enough to have good parents and live in good circumstances, right? I think this is the contribution that is most important that comes from a member. We should instead argue that children who grew up in a very abusive household should never be entitled to taking care of their parents when they're the ones who made your life a living nightmare, but you're still being forced and you're always still being expected to take care of them regardless of the circumstances that you always grew up in. This is very unfair, not only because people never consented being born, let alone getting abused for the rest of your lives, but are still being expected to always take care of your parents, to always give out all of your time, all of your effort, and all of your energy to be there for them on their deathbed. This weighs us directly over opening opposition when you talk about genuinity, right? Because opening opposition also never proved to you why genuinity is the most important metric in this debate. We tell you that on CO, we don't care if you're not genuine towards your parents. We don't care if these people are not there for your parents as well, because these are children who deserve it the most when they are the most vulnerable actor inside this entire debate. Inheritance should directly be given to them as a form of compensation for all of the trauma that these parents have already generated throughout your entire childhood and throughout your entire life. That is the reason why it's so important for us to actually consider these type of children as well, right? We can't just frame this as a worst case scenario, because we tell you these are the cases that are most urgent in this debate, because these are children who are always going to be pressured, not only internally that you feel guilt if you don't take care of your parents, you're also being pressured by society that if you do not take care of your parents, you're not an obedient child. These are the people who are always going to be expected to take care of your parents, even if these parents has already been extremely coercive and extremely bad towards you inside your entire lifetime as well. We tell you that inheritance should always be a right. It is what these children deserve to get. If you buy government's case about appreciation and about their entire fulfillment, for instance, right, you should believe in CO's case then, because we're the only ones to tell you that the direct transaction is what actually gives you the entire compensation that you have inside your entire life. So opposed. Thank you.
We thank the opposition for that debate, and that wraps up this debate. Okay. So debaters, please stay here, and if you wanna like go